Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel. I wanted to start off this series with showing you how I make my blocks. Now, I'm Steven. I am the founder of Creative Cavern Costume and Design, and this is my system of drafting the basic block for a leotard. So what I'm going to do is, the system that I'm using is Valentina. I'm not sure if you can actually get this program anymore. It was developed as the Valentina project, and now the software that is now replaced it is Seamly. So the format and the way that it looks is identical from what I've seen. I haven't downloaded it yet, so I'm not completely sure if all of the functions are the same, but from what I've seen, everything is the same with that. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to create a new pattern, and then I'm going to call this Extra Small Adult Leo. I want my measurements to be in inches because I am in the United States. Sorry for anyone who is not inside of imperial measurements and you use metric. The format of this, I have everything preloaded in, which is what I should do right now. My measurements, I'm going to go load individual, and then I want female sizes, my dance ones, my letter sizes, and I'm going to go my extra small adult. I have to transfer the other ones over from my other computer. So right now I just have adult sizes inside of here. So I'm going to make my first length. So it's going to give me a point called point A, which is just going to be the start of where you want your pattern to go. I'm going to click on that dot, and now it gives me a line, and I can shift this line wherever length that I want. So if you see down at the bottom right here, it's telling you how long those lengths are and at what degree of an angle it is. So if I hit shift, then it's going to snap it to a standard. This is going to be straight down. I could go out, flat, up at the angle, no, because I'm at the top of the pattern. So I'm just going to click wherever, and then it's giving me the 270 degrees down. I'm going to come into the formula for the length, and for my first one, I'm going to put my full front length. And just by double clicking on it, it puts it right here, and I can see what that value is in inches. Now, I use a formula base from Standard Sizes. It's the same one that is in Janet Arnold's Patterns for Fashion Design, but they're averaged out so that I get combined sizing. So a 0 and a 2, you take those measurements, create the average between them. Actually, let me see if I can show you. Oh, that's not what I wanted. So I'll open up the Excel program for it, and here we go. So these are the standard sizes, and I also do something that's different. So you see how they're color coded. This is getting way off track already. I have a squirrel's brain, if you're the same. Yes. So I use my standard sizes are color coded. So like these, like tealy blues. So this is going to be whatever, let's see, my extra small adult is well, no, my small adult is like a 4 to a 6. So the standard is the average between those. If I go back here, yeah, here we go. So here's my size. Oh, sorry. No, I was wrong. My size 6 to 8 is my small adult. I have 34 here, 35 here. And then you'll notice it says 31 and 1/20th. This is because it's giving me the reduction, the stretch of the fabric. I use a 90% as my baseline for it. If I remove the 90% and I just take the average, then you see it's 34.5, which is right in between. But I don't want that. I want it to be with my fabric reduction already thinking, or my negative ease of the fabric, so that the fabric is stretching to fit the person, not going to hang off loosely. This isn't, if I was using a woven fabric, then I would use my standard sizes and add ease. But since these are dance costumes, we want the negative ease inside of it so that it really form fits the body. So that's what these measurements are doing. Now, I only do that to my horizontals. I don't do that to my verticals. I don't like vertical reduction inside of it because not all fabrics stretch the same way. You have more stretch horizontally than you do vertically unless you're using a 4-way stretch. So all of my vertical measurements are actually what is listed, and I'll get into some problems that I have with that as we go along. So right now I'm going to enter my full front length. This is going to give me from the base of the neck to the shoulder straight down to the waist. So whenever I click OK, now I can call this full front, FF, or I can label it as W to signify that this is going to be my waist. When doing normal pattern drafting, you're going to see that they go A, B, C, D, here, there, mark this point. I am listing pinpoints of what part of the body I'm hitting, and I have a diagram. I'll throw it up on the screen right now so you can see how I'm working vertically down the body to give me landmarks of where the width needs to be on that landmark. So now from W, I'm going to come down again, and I'm going to give my crotch length, and I want to divide that by 2. And I'm dividing it by 2 because the crotch length is determined from waist to under the crotch all the way back up to the waist. So I only want half of that measurement to give me the front half of the body, although this is being drafted as a 2-in-1 pattern for front and back. So now I'm going to give that the label of crotch length. And so it's just extending my pattern down. Now I'm going to hit zoom for best fit, and you can see this is up where my shoulder's going to be. This is the waist, and this is going to be the center point underneath of the crotch. Now I'm going to go from the waist point, and I'm drawing upwards. I'm going to take this measurement out, and I want the center front length, and I'm going to call this one CF for center front. And this is going to be where it reaches the neck, like in between the point of the clavicle, how it kind of makes that little V dip. It's going to hit me right there. And now I'm going to go again, and I'm going to take the center back this time. That way I can make this a 2-in-1. Oh, I did not tell it to call it center back. So you notice center back is a lot longer than the center front. This is normal. Think it has to go all the way up to the base of the neck versus just to the base of the throat in the front. So those give me this one. Now the next one that I want is going to be the bust line. Now in the diagrams that I have, I'll show you on the screen right now. I'll pause what I'm doing. The body is divided into heads by the theorist of pattern makers and artists for proportions. The body is divided into heads. So from neck to bust should be one head. So I'm just dividing this in half to give me the bust point, and I'm going to label that B for bust. Now I'm going to go and I want to create another point that is half of the center front to bust, and I'm not going to label these two. And then I'm going center back to bust. So I got A1 and A2. I want directly in between those. And then I'm going to call this AC for across chest. I'm averaging it out so that I can make this as a 2-in-1, and so that all of my side seams, everything, go very nice together. I'm going to hide these two labels because I don't need them. And then I'm gonna swing that up so that it's right beside it, just for clarity's sake. So I'm averaging the distance between it. If I wanted to zoom in and show the length of it, they're about an inch apart. So averaging like a ½ inch up in the front and half in the back. This is giving me where my cross chest is going to be. So where that armhole is going to be the furthest into the pattern. So I'm not too concerned with the way that that it's supposed to be lower on one and higher on the other. I take the average of it. It's never done me wrong before. Now I am going to find my side length. So I'm going from the waist, and this is going to give me the base of the armhole. So here, side length, and I'm going to add 1 inch to it. Why? Because in Janet Arnold's drafting, in the book, the pattern drafting for fashion design, it tells you to raise the armhole 1 inch whenever making active wear, dance wear. So I do it because she said to do it, and it fits nicely, so I've just kept it. Label point, I can say arm side or side length. I'm gonna go arm side because the side length is also shoulder length, so just to keep that from being confusing. My next one that I want is going to be my hip depth. So I'm going to come down. Now this is where things get a little weird because the top is drafted off of making the bodice block. When adding the bottom to it, like the brief to it, things don't add up logically, and I will show you the problems that it actually creates. So I want hip depth front. And we're going to call this HH for hip height. Okay, so next I want to do one more, and I want to create the under bust. So I'm going to go bust radius, and I'm going to add 1 inch to it just for ease of comfort, calling it UB for under bust. And so far, I have the pinpoints of the body. So if you look from the diagram to what I have so far, I've just hit the landmarks inside of the body. Now I'm going to start dealing with horizontal lengths. So from this very top point of A, I'm going to do my across shoulder. Across shoulder front plus across shoulder back. And then I'm going to divide those by 2 so that it just averages out for me. And I'm going to call this not AC apparently. I'm going to go SW for shoulder width. Now this one I'm going to square down 3 inches, and I'm going to change the style of it and the color just for later whenever I'm actually making the shoulder. Next I want my across chest. So I'm going to do the same thing and go across chest. Now I could go add do I not have that one? Oh, it's because it's called back. No, back arc is not the same. Okay, so it's right here. So I don't know why it did that. You know, software. It likes to do what it wants to do. Okay, so I could average out between them and give me the across chest and back width. So somewhere this shoulder point's going to be, and this is where it's going to round in to hit the chest and then round back out to go under the arm. This is my side. So now I'm going to use my bust, and I'm dividing that by 4 because I'm only drawing 1/4 of the pattern right now. So this is half of the front, and that's going to give me my across bust right here. Now in regular format, if you were doing this with wovens, you would want to do your bust arc and your back arc, but those two measurements are taken from two different places on the mannequin. The bust arc is about, I want to say, like 2 inches down or something from the arm plate, and so it's creating a curve of around a curve around the body, where your back arc is taken from the base of the armhole. So when you add those two up, they don't equal the bust. So that's why I take the bust, divide it by 4, because the stretch of the fabric will put the seam where it needs to be, and the rest of the fabric, like pulling on the seam in different places, like the side seam, it'll be fine. So I'm going to take the same measurement right here. Now I could do this way and have it create that, or I could use this fun little guy right here. So the black dots are, I'm going to select this point and this point to give me the red dot, which is going to be my new point. So you want to go x-axis first. So I want to go this one. Oh, just kidding. X-axis first. Axis first, and then I want my y-axis, and then it gives me a point out here, and these are level. So I can call this AB2. So that's the second point across the bust. Now I want to do my underbust. My underbust is going to be a very fun measurement. So I want to go bust divided by 4. And I'm going to put that in parentheses. And then I want to add it to my waist divided by 4. And then I want this divided by 2. So what I did is I'm thinking my underbust for comfort. Now, if I'm doing something that like I want to create bust support, then I need the actual underbust measurement, which you can figure out. Like there's a formula for it, but for ease, just take the measurement and then you'll know what it's supposed to be. It's for someone who has, like, let's say they have a larger chest. Like one of my students, they have about a 12-inch difference between bust and underbust. So if I want the costume to like accentuate the bust, or if I'm doing a 2-piece costume and I want it to be supportive, then yeah, I will take the underbust measurement so that I get a lot of compression under the bust to lift the bust. But if I'm doing a standard Leo and I want it to be nice and smooth from bust down to waist, I'm only going to take half that measurement. So I took the bust divided by 4, the waist divided by 4, and I'm adding those together, and then I'm getting the distance that's halfway between them by dividing it by 2 again. And I'm going to call this UBW for underbust width. So now my waist is going to be nice and easy. Waist divided, not by 2, by 4. And then you can see this point is halfway between there. Call this WW. www.howtoconfusepatternmakers.com. Okay, now my hip is going to be just my hip divided by 4. Again, I have a hip arc front and a hip arc back. Now with the hip and waist arcs front and back, they will add up to be what the full hip or the full waist is. For some reason, for bust, they decide to measure it from 2 different places, so it doesn't add up that way. I'm not sure why they do it. It's just the way that that is done. And this one is doing this. It started doing this. HH1 doesn't want, like, it's giving me the measurement here. It's giving me an error message. And when I was doing the sample for this, because I wanted to do this so that I had another template of it, for some reason that is not correct. Oh, that's why. Okay. I'm just being stupid. That's why. These are already taken by fourth measurement, so I only have to take these, and I don't need to divide them by 4. I need to divide them by 2. And we're going to call this HW for hip width. So you can start to see how the body is going to be inside of there. So starting from here, this is right under the arm. It's gonna come down on the bust, come in towards the waist, and start to come out towards the hip. Now we get into the part where I hate the most. This is doing the shoulder, and I need the arc tool. This is a fun little doodad. So now I'm going to go shoulder slope. And I'm going to use the shoulder slope front. Again, I could do shoulder slope front and back, divide by 2. That nonsense. Normally I just use shoulder slope front, and my first one's going to be 110-degree angle. My ending point, we'll say, is 130. So what this is going to do is from this point, it's going to create an arc that's just at those angles. And I'm trying to have it intersect with the pink line that I squared down before. And there it is. Now I'm going to go to my curve tool, and I want a point that intersects a curve. So the arc is considered a curve inside of the software. So I want to go select the curve, thank you, and then select a point of that line. I could have clicked this one or this one, doesn't matter. And then you see how it's creating an angle on it. If I hit shift, it snaps it to being where those two intersect if I drag it into there. Now this is supposed to be the very tip of the shoulder. So if I draw my line out to intersect with this line, which I'll have to do again the same exact way, so I need to go here and do my shoulder length as being my arced radius. This one is going to be 10. We'll go 10 to 30 and see what it gives me. There we go. I could have went 10 to 20. So this is going to give me where my shoulder hits my neck, or where their shoulder. I'm not making this costume for me. I don't look good in leotards, unfortunately. Just kidding, I don't wear leotards. Okay, so this is going to be my shoulder and neck point. Now, I'm going to create a line that goes from here to here. I'm not actually using that line for anything other than what the degree of slope it has. So now I'm going to go from this point. I was holding shift for no reason. And I want to re-select the shoulder length. And I want to multiply that by 0.9 so that I get a reduction inside of it. I don't know why I didn't do it originally, but I just know that it's not there now. So I've been working with this formula box for the whole time for length. Now I want to have a different angle that's matching a formula that's already inside of the pattern or a pre-calculated one. Apparently in other drafting manuals it says degree of slope of shoulder should be 23 degrees. I haven't tried to prove or disprove that by this formula, or, well, yeah, I guess this direction of formula that these instructions tell me to do. Just because, I mean, it would be easy to do. I could find the degree from here and subtract that from 180 and see what it gives me. So now I want angle of lines. Angle of lines, there it is. This is called SN, crap. SN to A4 is what I'm looking for. Angle of lines from SN to A4. Delete that extra bit. So this is not that. So I just did the math in my head. Sorry. I should speak out loud whenever I'm doing things. So 180 and 197.1 is not 23 degrees of slope. I mean, that's based off of whatever they calculated as the average degree of slope is for a person, which the one that I saw that one on was updated in like 2000 and something, where I believe Janet Arnold's whole thing was back in I don't know, in the 19 somethings. So I don't know why the calculation is technically different. And I'm going to call this one ST. I'm going to lowercase the t. So now that gives me on that line that point. So this is going to be my shoulder tip. So is it actually to the tip of the shoulder? No. So if I wanted sleeves on this, I could come down all the way, because this would pretty much hit right at the point where the shoulder starts to curve over. I'm going to come in a little bit because I don't want it to go out that far. So that's why I do the 0.9 reduction on it. So this gives me that, and now you can see this is where the armhole is going to be. This is going to give me my neck hole, and then my back neck hole. Last thing to do is another really fun part that now I'm using like Janet's instructions to do this. This does not match up. I will tell you now. So don't at me in the comments of, oh, this doesn't look right, like these parts and pieces don't match up. I know that they don't. I adjust it whenever I'm making the pattern, because I don't like, it's easier to do it by hand, and you're always going to have to make adjustments and everything, like it's just the way that it is. But normally your blocks don't include seam allowance. So if your block is including seam allowance, then yes, the edges will not always line up, because where you're sewing is not the edge of the fabric. So I think that these were drafted with thinking about the seam allowance, because it says nothing about add seam allowance. Now let me double check that I have it open right here. No, it doesn't say anything about adding the seam allowance. It just says cut it out, fit the pattern. So the upper bodice was thinking about, like, there is no seam allowance, and then the bottom is saying there is seam allowance, and I just haven't figured out a good way to manipulate that so that it does other fun things. So now I'm going into what this shape needs to be down here. So first I am going to go and do what she tells me to do, and this is why I don't necessarily agree with what's going on. So I'm not doing everything to a T that she says to do, because I feel like these make these leotards out to be a little bit more 80s than I want it to be. So I'm going to call this HD for hip depth. And she wants me to add 1 more inch up here. That means the leg hole is going to go all the way up here. So no, I'm not doing that. You can already see there's a difference between what the measured hip height is and what the hip depth that she's saying to apply to this is. A part of this is I think that they're thinking about the negative ease inside of the fabric, because all of these instructions have remove this much from the pattern, remove this much from the pattern, and then it tells you at the very bottom, subtract another 1.5 inches from the waist if you're using a 4-way stretch. And I want my patterns to work for 2-way stretch, and if I'm using a 4-way stretch, I'll make that modification after. This needs to be a standard block for all things, not just for one specific type of fabric. Because if you do that and then you forget about it because you always use a different type of fabric and use something that has no stretch in it absolutely from top to bottom, I mean, they all kind of do, but I mean, you're going to be sewing with a knit, so it's going to have some give. But if one that has even less give than normal, you're going to have some unhappy dancers inside of. Yeah, okay. So this is going to be that high. Yes. Now I'm going to do, I mean, you could do these in any order, really. So she says that this needs to be 1 3/4. Oops, that is not 1 3/4. Now I want that, and since this is under a size 10, she wants me to then subtract 3/8 off of it. And this is going to be what I'm going to call G for gusset, even though this is not, I used to put gussets inside of them and have this bottom edge be a completely separate piece, and then it's just sewing another seam line, and who wants to do that? So I've just started drafting it inside of here as well, which is the way that she does it. So, but my other way of doing it, I would calculate the distance and then another distance and then put a line, and then my gusset would be like this thing down here, and it's just another piece to cut out, another thing to sew together, and it's not necessary. So now I need to backtrack this by 3/8, right? Yes, 3/8. Sorry, that took me a minute to find in my head. Now this is going to be the gusset width. And now I can create this lovely box that's right here. Oh, I guess I should click where it needs to be. Here's the line from here to here. And I'm going to go ahead and add in the instruction of coming up an inch from that point as well. I'm going to hide these labels because I don't need them. I can also pull this out. This is 1 and 3/8, I believe, plus 3/8. And not show that one. And now this one goes to here to get a half mark of here. Then I can't remember how many points are supposed to be. There's 4 in total. I know that there's 1 in between here. I should be a little bit more specific with what these actually are. And then this one is 3/8 from the outside. This center one, this looks different to me for some reason. Oh, I think I did. This one isn't supposed to be there. It gets real nice and confusing as you're going along with this. This one still doesn't look like it should. Did I apply the right length to this? 1 3/4 minus, that's why I'm an idiot. 1/8. There we go. I don't know. After you've been doing this for so long, and you 2/8 of an inch on a computer screen, and I was like, that looks ultra slim. I don't think that this is correct. Okay, so yes, that is looking more like what I need it to look like. This one is going to come up a 1/2 inch. So I could just put a 1/2, or I could put 0.5, doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to lower this down by, did I draft this correctly? No, I didn't. Oh my goodness. So I was supposed to be going from this point up here. That's also a part of the problem. How do I fix that? Can I fix that? HD. Okay, so this I added this in too early. This is what happens whenever you're impatient and flying by the seat of your pants. Okay, I can't delete that without deleting this. I can't delete that. This one, delete. This one, delete. And re-input hip width. Sorry about that. I don't know what I was thinking. But everything is fixable. Hip. So I need hip front, hip back. Put a plus sign in between them. I'm just re-inputting that line because I put it in too early. Thinking because I wanted to show you what the difference was between these two. That's the only reason why I have this guy in here. Now let's redo that again. So I want to take this in half, yes, and then I want to take this side in half, yes. Nope, not enter, just hit OK. Then I'm going to come in 3/8 of an inch on this side. Come down 3/8 of an inch on this side. And then up 1/2 inch from here. Okay, so now I wonder if I could just do it like this. Give me halfway in between the two. So from this point to this point is where we're putting a halfway mark. And then I'm going to do the same thing that I did before and pull this one out, but I'm only pulling this one out an inch. So the front pattern is going to go from this dot through this dot all the way up into this one down to here. The back pattern, it's going to go from this dot to this dot. Ask me why. Actually, no, it's going to go to this dot. So this space right here and this space right here, like the back pattern's not going to curve like this. And I don't know. I'm going to take a picture of, I don't want to use images from her book because they could be copyrighted, you know, that fun. But I don't understand why they draft it like that. Because then the front is this wide. The back is only this wide. The back should curve up and into it. I just fix it whenever I do it. So I'm at a loss of why that would be. But now we have all of the points we need to draw out the pattern. As I start losing my voice. I'm sorry this is so long. Apologies. But this is how long it takes to do it. I mean, I'm explaining it a little bit so you know. Interesting. So you just want to get this curve to be as close to all these dots as possible. I must have did something stupid. Oh wait, it's because I'm not. This point right here is not correct. It should be right here. Is that because let me just see if the reason why, yeah, okay. There it is. I put it in the wrong half. I did this half, which is true. I need this point to show me what this one should be. But there we go. So there's my front leg hole. Now I'm going to do the back one the way that she says to do it, even though it doesn't make any sense to me why you're doing it like this. I'm going to just go to this point. Now, I can do it this way, and I can smooth out this line with my eyes. Like, I can figure out what this actual distance needs to be, or what the angle of the distance needs to be to make it smooth. Or you can select this one that has multiple things going on with it, and then I can select it, select this point, and then select this point, hit enter, and then at this point you're gonna get 2 dots instead of just 1 dot. So this needs to swoop up a little bit and then swoop down and out. And then this one is going to come up to it with a little bit in, not so far in that it touches that one, but I like to go about halfway, and then balance those out. So now that it goes like that. Oh, what I should also mention, anytime that you're doing a curve, it wants you to go this way around the pattern. So it wants you to put everything in a clockwise motion, not a counterclockwise motion. So if you see these arrows, so the way that you do it and just create habit of doing it is going and selecting the first one, and then this is the direction of your arrow. So if I went from here to here, then my arrows would be coming this way. If I go from here out this way, my arrows are pointing in the direction of the second click. So now I can go here and start to shape it into what I want it to be. And all this is just kind of like eyeballing what looks correct. Do I want this point to be that point? Yeah, technically it needs to be. But is it going to ride that line? I will figure that out in a minute. There's a part of me that does things a little bit just like my way, and then there's parts of me that does things by the book. I'm trying to stay with by the book and then give you a reason for why I would not do it a certain way. So since this is a straight line, I can just hit line. Now I need to go back to curve. So when making a curve around the armhole, there's a standard that is out there that we want this for at least 1/2 of an inch to be flat. So I make that flat, and then I get this one to manipulate so that it goes into that point. And then there's my armhole. Then I want to go from this point to this point. Now, truly you're supposed to square this and then like come around and do all of the fun things. So like, I'll do that just so that you can see. Oh, nope, I don't want that one. I want a squared line. So from here to here, so that I can get my base point of where I want my squaring to be. Will you click? Thank you. Go about 4 inches. I didn't need 4 inches. And then since this one's flat anyways, I can just do it as a point. And we'll go 3 inches. So here's my squared off line. This one out here can come outside of it like 3/8 of an inch. This is not even 3/8 of an inch. So just by like looking at the curve and just pulling it to where you want it to be, you could do it without putting in your other lines. I just said that I wanted to do things by the book, and then I was like, this one's, I don't do that. I'm saying my method works for me, and this is how I do it. So this is the same. You would have wanted to square off and then use this same square off line and then try to touch this line to whatever portion from the corner. It's not necessary. Not when working with stretch fabrics. As long as this swoops down and has a gentle curve into the back neckline, you're golden. Okay, so now I'm going to do one more thing, because every single fit guide that's out there talks about girth. And make sure that the girth that you're using, like the measurement of the girth, fits inside of the costume. And that is like your most important measurement. Well, this doesn't have a girth on it. So we measure girth from the center of the shoulder, coming down to in between the crotch seam. So technically this point right here to here should be half of the girth. Guess what? It's not. I will tell you already, it's not. It's off by about a half an inch, and that could be because whenever she's having me do all of these things with removing X, Y, and Z in the way that it's supposed to come out, they're thinking about the negative e's long ways. I'm just going to make these 360. Oh. See, it's not even close. Who saw what I didn't do? Oh no, crotch. Oh, current length. No. That's not what I want. I want the arc. No. Click on the arc. Okay. Divide by 2. There we go. Okay, so like that's a big half inch. So I'm going to come into here and scroll, and I'll show you that this right here is 0.606263 away. So what I like to do, well, one, this can have the half inch added to it, and then that starts to correct that. Now the distance between these two is like about an inch, right? Yeah, it's 1 inch and 0.0226. So I came down an eighth of an inch here, so I'm gonna half that distance. So I'm gonna plus a half. Oh, I drew it the opposite way this time. Minus a half. There we go. So now you're saying these two are closer. This to this, like this is where it's going to hit you on that hip. This is where it's saying that that hip should be. So I could go again and say, which one do I want to select? So this is the amount of distance between those two now. So less than, I mean, it's about a tenth of an inch. So it's better. So this does swoop up. So mind you, it still comes up above the hip line as it's curving around the body, but that makes you have longer legs. Now imagine if this was all the way up here. That's like getting into like V-line territory, and I don't know. No. My preference of style is a lower brief. Now this is still, for me, this is still a high brief, because if I put in crotch depth, so crotch depth is how far from waist to where, if you were sitting in a chair and you were measuring from your waist to where it hits the chair, so it should be level with the bottom of, like, level with the starting curve of the crotch. That's all the way down here. So if you wanted something that was more like a biker short, you know, or like boy shorts, like if you want it to look like it's a flat line from crotch all the way out, this is the point that you would go from. So keeping these in mind, because this is just an extension to go under the body, this is where your actual leg is creating shape. So and that's why this really only works when you're doing a Leo. When you start getting into like unitards and you're adding a lot of length, can you do it? Yes, but it's easier to create a crotch seam and then draft it like a pant versus like a pant or a short, because that's kind of the territory that you're getting into. Can you do it this way? Yeah. Before this, inside of the book, it tells you exactly like where you would go from there. But I find that it creates a little bit of excess fabric, because you're not cutting out that excess fabric in a specific curve to form to the body. You're just encompassing everything. And then so you might get some wrinkling or some some bunching in certain areas that you don't want. That, I mean, it's personal choice. Personally, if I wanted to go lower with the leg hole past where the crotch depth is, then I would draft the bottom as a short instead. So then I would have a line in here that swoops this way and comes down, and then I would have a side seam and a center seam, and that would have to be cut differently than the rest of the pattern, because this is assuming that this is being on the fold. Now, to make this an actual pattern piece, and then we'll be done. Class will be dismissed. I am a teacher, so I was a public school teacher. So I'm going to start from here. And I'm going to go to this point, and I'm going to do the back first. So it selected that curve for me already, so all I have to do is come down to the bottom, click that node, click this one. This is taking me all the way to here. I can click this curve right here, click that curve, click it. You're highlighted. Why aren't you going? Thank you. All the way to that point right there. Click around that curve. Hit enter. This is the pathway that it's going to do. Just hit OK. Don't try to manipulate the pattern inside of that portion of it, because for some reason it doesn't do what you want it to do. So I'm going to go from here down this curve. So if you notice, I'm hitting curves instead of hitting points. Like sometimes I hit a point. Like right here I'll hit the point. But the curves are based off of points, so you can just hit the curve and it'll, see how it went all the way there, but I went from here and I just clicked that curve and it didn't just go whoop, it went up through the point. So it's going by the bases of what all the curves are put into. So then hit enter, okay. Then once I go to details, hey look, there's my leotard. And hey look, you can see they don't line up. Now this extra extension bit, like, just cut it off. That's where I was debating, do I need to create another curve that matches up to it? And I'm like, no, it'll be fine. But these don't match up. And I don't understand why she tells you to do it that way. I just fix it. Yeah, I lower the leg hole anyways, so whenever I lower the leg hole and I add my 1/2 inch to this, then I fix the length of this to match this and do that. So, I mean, I do it every single time. So feel free to fix that yourself. Or, I mean, I'm just showing you my method, not that this is the one and only way and this is the correct way to do it all. I'm just saying, I make costumes. This is the way that I draft my patterns, and my patterns fit people. So I have dancers every year who wear my costumes. So come at me, bro. I mean, you might have a completely different way, and that is completely legitimate. You can have whichever way that you want. So seam allowance, I'm going to put it as 1/4 of an inch because I use a serger. So my seam allowance is now included inside of here. Now, you could go around and you could remove it off of the edges that you don't need it. This is supposed to be on the center fold, so you could go from this point to whatever point, and you could remove this seam allowance. You could go before and after seam allowance, and you can start going around. Just cut it out. I mean, it doesn't make that much of a difference. Now, if you want, and that's whenever you would want to go point to point to point to point. I go point to point. I go line to line to give me shape, because I'm not concerned with cutting out the seam allowance like this. So if you want to determine the amount of seam allowance you have on each individual part of it, I don't sew anything with more than a quarter of an inch, especially in dance costumes, because I'm using my serger for like 90% of it, and then maybe a cover stitch machine, which that doesn't even, like, I'm not putting, I mean, I could be putting pieces together with it, but I'm normally using it as a seam finish. So by going from, like, I don't need to be specific with the amount of seam allowance that it has on it. So I just will cut down the center line instead and be done with it. But if you do, then go point to point to point, and you can manipulate it like that. From here, you would go to layout, and let's say that, like, what is the place called? Kinko's or whatever, like FedEx Print Shop, whoever. You could go through and set this up to be the size of whatever the roll is going to be. Or if you have a, like, large format printers, the rolls are generally 24 inches across. So inches. So you can go like this, and then it'll show you that it wants to print it out like this. This is stupid. And notice, seam allowance is on that one. I didn't put seam allowance on that one. I'm not actually printing this out right now. It's just a sample to make this video. But let's say that you're going to be like a normal, just everyday person who's going to be cutting it out on a letter size. You want to be inside of the custom, and it always switches this to centimeters, and it drives me crazy. I'm gonna say 12. We'll start with 12 and see if it does it. Okay, so I'm 12 inches across right now, and I can tell I have a little bit more that I can subtract it down by. So let's go to 9, see if it accepts it. It does accept it. Okay, so now I'm pretty much as close as I would want to be to it. Could I go more? Yes. Will I? No. So what I should also note is I have, where is it at? I thought there was a button that said, oh yeah, it's right here. Right here. So auto cropped unused lengths. So this says that it's however many, 341.3333 eternity inches high. Well, my pattern is not 300 and whatever inches high. So it's cropping the length for me already, so that, boom, that's the only one that I have to really deal with. Now, if I go up to File, Layout, and then I want to print preview the tile. So it's going to take 4 pieces of paper. It's giving me where my attachment lines are. If I go like this, I can see each pattern piece. Pretty much, yeah, I would need each one of these. These ones make me very angry. So, but I mean, there's nothing you can really do. You can lower this a little bit more and try to get the whole thing on. Now, though, yes, you are going to be like, the whole thing fits on the page. I could see the edge of the line. If the edge of the line is over this cut line, it's going to throw another page on there. So that's whenever you go into print and it's not gonna let me do this. It's because I'm on this printer. It's not gonna let me select certain ranges. So I could say that I want you to print pages 1 and 2, and then 4 and 5, skipping 3, and then, and skip unused pages, especially if you can see it, you can see it, and you don't have to cut out another or print out another page and wasteful paper and everything. The other way that you can do that is it's not on there anymore. You can save this as a PDF. Do I have a PDF already saved of it? No. Let me go here, desktop, and we're going to, this is trying to save it, not as a PDF. Oh, because I have to go like this. Export. I want this to be a PDF. It's going to go to my desktop. I'm not going to name it because I'm going to delete it right after anyways. So now it's on my desktop. If you have Adobe, which most people already do, this is just the other way to worry about printing it out. You can go here. There is okay, I don't care about any of those. If I go into the print, so now it's showing me, here's my pattern pieces. Now if you print it like this, those dotted lines are not going to be there. You're going to have to line up these teeny tiny lines onto each other. So it's selected under poster. If you go size, and you can just see it on one piece of paper. So now it's going to take 8 pages instead of 12 pages. You can put the cut marks on it. Oh, and this is the first time that I've seen that it does that. Okay, well, this one's allowing you to do it like that. Sometimes whenever you hit add cut marks, it'll add more pages to it. Why? I don't know. But it's saying that everything is good to go. So that's fun. I wonder if you could print preview this like this. I don't know. I'm not computer illiterate. I don't use Adobe because I only use it if I have a case like this where it was making me mad inside of Valentina that I decide like I'm just gonna throw it on Adobe to print it off real quick, and then I don't print it with the cut marks and all of the things. I just line the pattern pieces up because it's a basic block. I know what it's supposed to look like. So thank you for watching. What I am an hour and a half in. I'll see if I can cut some things out of it, maybe some of my ramblings. But if you made it to the end, give me a like, subscribe to the channel, and hopefully, like, maybe I'll put a Patreon up. I'm a little bit weary about doing that since some of the costumes that I make, people are paying me for. So that's an ethical issue, I think, of getting paid to do a costume that someone's gonna wear, but Patreon paying me to make the costume that someone else is already paying me for. You know, it gets. So if I set up a Patreon, it will be to pay for the time of filming and editing, you know, if it's going to be for the costume. And then if it's an idea that someone wants me to do, to like teach them how to make this type of design, then yes, then that'll pay for that. You know, things to think about. So right now Patreon's not set up. You know, gotta jump off the ball running here. So thanks again for watching, and I will catch you later. Bye.